Atheists have a lot of arguments, but they never really think of anything new that the church hasn't had answers to for the past 2,000 years. So let's answer them.
Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I'm an atheist and skeptic, and yikes, this guy. I have looked at lists and lists of questions for atheists, and I see this video as an extension of that content, even though what this guy has for us today are assertions about atheists and atheist claims. Yes, today we are listening and responding to Redeemed Zoomer and his all atheist arguments answered in 10 minutes. I looked at his atheist argument wheel in a separate video, with all its jokey, aren't atheists dumb, and or Reddit incels trolling the interwebs jabs, and today I'm going to examine his version of atheist arguments. Disclaimer, I have seen Professor Plink's video, That's How I Found RZ, and I understand other YouTubers have responded. I have chosen not to watch their videos yet until I formulate mine. I hope I'm taking a unique path through this video, so I'm going to try to avoid repeating things that Plink said in his. He does offer some research on some topics that I want to explore, so if you haven't, you might want to bip over to his page and check it out. So what is my point of view? I'm glad you asked. For me, atheism is a response to theistic claims. Without people in my face telling me some God exists and he cares about the minutia of my life, I would go about my day. Wouldn't worry about calling myself anything. I would consult my conscience and local laws and customs about how to behave. I would look at science to find out how the world works. I would enjoy my life and my identity, and they would not have to fit around the claim that some god or gods exist. It just wouldn't be a thing. So enter RZ's video. These atheist arguments that he presents are actually responses to religious claims, and really they are responses to RZ's religious ideas, his version of Christianity. What I want to do in this video is talk about where and why you might hear the atheist argument in question, and then talk a little about RZ's response. A lot of it is, nuh-uh, or yeah, but it's no big deal. This is part 1 of my responses. We are covering arguments 1 through 6. All right, enough blibbity blab. Let's see what RZ has for us.
Religion causes wars. Well, actually, only 7% of all human wars were caused by religion, and if you remove Islamic wars, that number drops down to 3%.
I'm not an atheist because religions cause war. Maybe the god in question is a war god like Mars or Ares. I have in fact heard Yahweh described as the tribal war god of Israel. So this isn't an argument atheists use for their atheism. That is a reason to reject theism. When atheists make this statement, it is likely in response to the claim that religion makes society or the world or just people better, that we are better off with religion. I am not one to claim that religion is 100% bad, or people can't be motivated to do good things because of their religion. That would be false. But I do happen to be of the opinion we would be better off without religion for a whole host of reasons. For one, religion can motivate people to commit atrocious acts, thinking that they are doing the good work of a perfect deity. And in the case of war, people can be motivated to kill or even commit genocide if they think their all-loving God desires it. And they can be motivated to kill, not over resources, but because another group disagrees with their concept of a God. Even in the same religious group, if you just deviate somewhat against their orthodoxy, they might kill you. There might be a war against you. And how do you argue against this idea? How do you argue against God? How do you tell a person that some instinct they have that they think is from God is not, and convince them? I don't know. I haven't cracked that code. Now let's get to RZ's rather dismissive answer. So I did do a quick Google search of this Encyclopedia of Wars that he cites here, and I found a couple of interesting hits. So I came across this fact check from this Andrew Holt, PhD, and he shows this meme that has been floating around, Religion Causes by War, that cites the Encyclopedia of Wars. So this is likely where RZ got it from because it's been floating around, but it's not exactly accurate. And this is what Andrew Holt says. It seems unlikely that Phillips and Axelrod or the other scholars involved in the production of their encyclopedia intended for their work to be used in quite this way. They only list their categorization of religious wars in the index of the third volume on pages 1484 and 1485, where one can find 121 entries listed under the topic. The issue does not otherwise seem to be remarked upon elsewhere. Moreover, if one were only to read the introduction or look through the various entries, each with helpful outline of key facts at the start of each entry, they would not find any effort to categorize wars as religious or otherwise, and so one might be confused by the claims found online that Phillips and Axelrod categorize 123 wars as religious when, unless you refer to the index, you will not find such an effort. So it looks like the authors were not interested in categorizing it quite this way. Holt's fact check is a fact check of another fact check. It's fact check religious wars, only 123 of 1763, and this particular webpage traces the source of the meme. And that site says the claims that 1, there have been 1,763 wars in human history, and 2, only 123 of them are a result of religious causes, appear explicitly nowhere in Encyclopedia of Wars. Those numbers were tallied up by Voxday using data from Encyclopedia of Wars, sort of. I myself have not looked at Encyclopedia of Wars, but both of these people say that they've looked at it and that it's a more nuanced picture than what religious people want to portray, and hopefully that is the truth. But we're going to rely on the fact that RZ was looking at a meme and he himself didn't go to Encyclopedia of Wars to check on this claim. I'm going to link both of these fact checks in the description below if you want to look more into it, and if you want to search Encyclopedia of Wars, have at it. Looks like a good time. We're returning to RZ and his claim. And do we need to talk about the implicit Islamophobia in his answer? Why else carve out how much war is caused by Muslims? Christianity doesn't cause so much war? Oh goody, just some war. All right. To be clear, it is rather obvious that wars are fought over secular reasons like land, resources, who gets political power. But what happens when secular and religious power fuses? Let's just take as an example the Albigensian Crusade. Now, the impetus for this crusade was religious, specifically religious orthodoxy, but there was a political element to it. Or how about the European Wars of Religion, which weren't only religious but involved territorial ambitions and power conflicts? So religious war can bleed over into purely secular struggles, and vice versa. Let's take the period in Ireland known as the Troubles, which wasn't a war per se, but more a conflict in Northern Ireland about who should have control over this postage stamp size of land. Even though it wasn't religious, the fact that loyalists to England were Protestant and Republicans wanting a united Ireland were Catholic became proxies for very secular concepts. And of course, I haven't even talked about the ongoing atrocity that is modern Israel, where the same God promised some tiny scrap of shitty land to two different groups, and they just want the other to be wiped off the face of the earth. Yeah, nice place you got there. The topic of war and religion could go on, and I don't want to bore listeners with all of that. My point here is that war, like so many human affairs, is complicated. And there are many different causes that are often intertwined and interlinked. Without more information, there is no way to judge the numbers RZ cites here. Who's to say that a war is purely secular or purely religious? Later in the video, RZ is going to attribute the good things in primarily secular nations today to the influence of religion. So you should also own that religion, and not just Christianity, but religion in general, influences wars and other conflicts. He's also going to suggest later that the fact that there are so many denominations of Christianity is not such a big deal, but Christians have been willing to kill other Christians in the name of their God. In fact, I named above many of the times that Christians have been willing to murder other Christians in the name of something, secular, religious, however. Who knows how you can even separate those things out when secular power fuses with religious power. To wrap up this point, if you have this tri-omni God, so perfect, with such a wonderful plan for us, why is there war? Why are we fighting over resources? Why are we fighting over ideas? Why are not just people of different religions willing to kill people because of religion or to gain power over them or to impose a religion, but why are Christians fighting Christians? And why are Christians fighting Christians over which Christianity should be the real Christianity? It doesn't look like religion makes us any better, and the promise is that it should. All right, Enough said. Big sigh. Next point.
A lot of evil has been done in the name of religion. This is true, but the most murderous people in human history have been atheists. This doesn't mean religion is true, it just means you can't use that as an argument against it.
Once again, this is not a reason I am an atheist. Yes, all kinds of people do evil or commit evil. And by evil here, I'm going to say we mean people do harm to others in some form. Even though for me, evil is a descriptor for the atrocious acts that people commit. But leeway. So the atheist actually making this argument is responding to one of a couple of claims, I think. That you need God that give you morality, or that you're better off with religion. And this point might especially come up if the theist implies that whatever God orders is good because God is good. Divine command theory means people can be commanded to harm others, and followers will comply and think that this temporary horror is part of a grand plan to defeat ultimate evil, or whatever. Like we're in the Marvel universe. To be clear, as far as we can tell, only people are speaking here, without evidence of any supernatural counsel. So what can happen is ordinary people can obey another person who claims religious authority, who claims to have heard a deity order whatever they want in a Machiavellian ends justify the means kind of way. I do want to touch on this fact that he breezes through that some of the most murderous people are atheists. So Hitler's religious views are complicated, and he said different things at different times. He said, for example, he was Catholic. And as the all-knowing, not really, Wiki says, he criticized atheism, both personally and privately. I know less about Pol Pot and Mao Zedong. I'm willing to say they were atheists. Atheism doesn't make any promises about anything, much less that lacking belief in a deity will make you a better person. So the fact that they are shitty people, fine. It's like atheism doesn't prevent that. And I don't want what I say next to come off as a defense of holding these leaders to account, because I don't want to defend them. But I do want to point out that when we charge them with crimes against humanity, we are not saying that they personally killed millions of people. They are not murderers in the same way Jeffrey Dahmer was a murderer. That is, these leaders set up the structures for millions to die, sometimes by avoidable starvation and disease. But Hitler didn't personally run the death camps, for example. It has to be said that religious people joined the Nazis and did personally murder others. So Hitler was able to convince religious people to do this. The Nazis had belt buckles that said Gott mit uns, God with us. Religious people across Germany and Eastern Europe did hold the guns and run the trains. The ideologies that fueled the atrocities in Nazi Germany were compounded by religion, is what I'm saying. And I would say that Pol Pot and Mao Zedong were motivated by another ideology that saw the secular threat of religion. Let's not forget that throughout many countries, religious and secular power was fused. There was a state religion. So to remove one power, you had to remove the religious power. The point was not to fight for atheism so much as to fight for a new power structure and remove the religious one. But again, atheism doesn't come with a built-in ideology. We have to get moral values from somewhere else. I consider myself a humanist, but there are other systems. So basically, throwing off the yoke of theism doesn't automatically mean heading toward evil behavior. That's my main point with this. And I've already bashed the idea to death that divine command theory can lead to atrocious acts in the name of good. All right, enough said. Next.
If you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be a Christian. Okay, and if you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be an atheist. Everyone's beliefs are shaped by their context.
Again, this is not why I am an atheist. I am not an atheist because of where I was born. I was actually born into a Catholic family, and by the age of 12, I realized it was bunk. I believed in some generic God for the longest time until I thought, nah, that's wrong. So no on that. Sure, we are shaped by the ideas we encounter like duh, but it doesn't mean that you blindly just accept everything. Hopefully you examine what you were told and you discard the stuff you don't need. But anyway, this atheist argument is a response to theists who happily and blithely claim to be born into the correct religion. They never questioned it or only superficially questioned it and insist they got it right. Congratulations. If you were born Muslim or Hindu, you might feel the same way. By the way, this point includes people who moved from one denomination to the next. You were raised Baptist and you're now a Methodist. Or like you were a conservative Jew and now you're a Reformed Jew. You religion shopped. You found something you liked better. That doesn't mean you actually questioned the underlying beliefs. You found the minor beliefs that you wanted to hold. But I will grant RZ that this is an argument an atheist might throw back to a theist in the hopes that the theist examines why they hold the beliefs they do. I mean, if you're just accepting something because your community believes that, your epistemology is flawed and you should check that out. Moving on.
How do you know which religion is true? Well, everyone, religious or not, has faith in a certain worldview. It's just that some worldviews are called religions and some are secular. But everyone has to ask the question of which worldview best explains the world.
This isn't an atheist argument. This is a question. That's the tweet. We can ask questions. Question is not an argument and it's not making any claims. Next up.
There's no scientific proof that God exists. Well, by definition, science can only prove things inside the natural world, and by definition, God is something outside the natural world. So science can neither prove nor disprove God.
Does anyone actually argue that science has totally disproved God? If someone says that, it is a clumsy formulation to say science doesn't need God for explanatory purposes. Really, I think an argument like this is in response to God being the cause of something natural, like the Big Bang, origin of life, evolution. Or if a creationist says Genesis is literally true, someone might respond that science has shown the world was not created as described in that book. By the way, there are some atheists who left Christianity when they tried to learn more about creationism, so at least here we have a reason some atheists began doubting God and deconverted. I mean, I'm not an atheist because I accepted science before I deconverted, but it can happen. As for God being outside of testable reality, way to make your hypothesis unfalsifiable, dude. Oh, you haven't seen any evidence for my God. Well, that's because he doesn't leave any. Check and fucking mate. But seriously, the Bible claims that God walked on the earth. Abraham, Sarah, Moses, other people all talked to God. God has said to have killed a dude for touching his precious Ark of the Covenant. God, in the form of Jesus, cured illness, raised the dead, and did some other magic tricks. So much for the Bible thinking God is in some other realm. And if God has any impact on this world, we should be able to test for that. If you say God answers prayers or cures disease, whatever you think he does, we should be able to measure that impact. Oh, am I kidding? Them goalposts gonna move and we would be told that we can't test God. If he thinks we're testing him, he won't do the thing. Yeah. Let's move on.
God. There's no evidence of anything supernatural. Well, that's just not accurate. There are medically documented cases of people with demonic possession speaking in languages they don't know, for example, and people with near-death experiences getting information they never had access to.
I would actually append to this that there is no good evidence for the supernatural. RZ seems to be accepting people's stories at face value. But people who have deconverted from cults where speaking in tongues happens will tell you that it's babble, it's meaningless, it's not a language. And who knows about those people with demonic possession? Like, there's just so many debunks of that. Same with the NDEs. You can go look out. They've all been debunked. There's all this thinking that whatever was going on was happening when the brain was still alive. It wasn't happening when it was flatlined. But I won't go into it all here because these videos are getting long enough. And if RZ can just accept shit because he wants, I can go nuh-uh and move on too. Anyway, while it's true a lot of atheists are skeptical of the supernatural, you can be an atheist and still think a supernatural exists. You just don't think there's a God in there. You can think that there's some supernatural energy that flows through all existence and our souls rejoin it when we leave our bodies. You can think that. Granted, I think if you become skeptical of a deity, You might also become skeptical of the supernatural realm. Not all atheists are skeptics, though, and so they accept all kinds of claims. In short, this is not a defeater for atheism. So, all right, this is where I'm going to end this here because this seems like a logical end and these videos are going to get long, but I'm going to continue looking at RZ's arguments from atheists and what he has to say about them in the next video. We'll see how far we get in that one. And as always, what do you think of these arguments so far? You can put that in the comments below. And while you're down there, you know the drill. Like and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff because we love it when you do the YouTube stuff. And if you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. That link will also be in the description below. And I will see you for part 2 of RZ and all of the arguments from atheists ever, all defeated as if. Bye for now.